morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Tong. I'm the Director of Solutions Marketing with Alfresco, and I'd like to welcome you to our webinar today entitled Enhancing Alfresco Share with HPI 2.1. On the call with me today is our partner TSG out of Chicago. With me is Ben Allen and George Steimer, who will provide an overview of HPI and the solution they provide. As we get started here, I'd just like to give a quick overview and let you know about the WebEx interface that you have. If you have any questions, please provide them in the chat or the QA section. We'll hit questions at the end of this session. So today, really, our topic is about user experience, and I wanted to talk about this generally because we interact with technology every day, and that user experience really matters. And brands that are succeeding in the world today are realizing this, and they're doing a lot about it. And so the brands that you see on the screen right here have done a lot to make technology interact with our lives in very meaningful ways. And really, business is no different, because the companies that are really winning in business today are delivering solutions that integrate that good user experience with business functionality. At Alfresco, this has been a vision and a future of ours, is that we've taken our interface, and we started with Alfresco Explorer, if you remember that from days of old, and we've integrated that into and added functionality to that, and to provide a share user interface today that extends beyond your desktop and reaches out to mobile devices, so that it can be a common place for you to gather and provide content and interact with it. We extend that out through other use cases too with Workdesk. We'll not hit on that in the webinar today, but share is kind of that common way for users to interact with content. And within this is what Gartner and the other analysts are seeing is that we're at an interesting place in the ECM world today, where legacy products are requiring a generational refresh. And what Gartner's really commenting on is that users are looking for different ways to interact with content. They're looking for it to be integrated into business applications and to be able to provide more meaningful interactions with it. And so IDC sees this and says, within a specific segment of that user, that content management within users, is that there's this common use case around file sync and share, that there's a whole lot of consumer-based apps that are inviting anarchy into the enterprise. And why is that? And the reason is because users are looking for a simpler way to be able to interact with content and business applications. A few years ago and longer time ago, when ECM was about building large monolithic applications that lived behind the firewall, people thought it was cool to be able to log into a specific application that did one thing. But the way that business works today, and as fast-paced as business is today, people want more access to content. They want to be able to interact with it on devices that they want to. They want to be able to have access to it in new ways. And that's really the vision around Alfresco, is to be able to provide that content in a very usable way in the cloud. And that's happening actually in a growing number of ways in most organizations. But organizations are also realizing that there's some content that they never want to share out in the cloud. This is proprietary information or legal or financial-based information. All of that information they're going to want to be able to store in-house in a very secure way. But then there's this middle area of content that is going to either be in the cloud sometime or on-premise sometime, or that they're going to need to fill out some business or use case or legal rules to figure out where that content's going to live. And so that's the model, is to be able to provide a content structure where you have the flexibility for your content to live where it is, but then you also have the user experience to be able to interact with that in a very meaningful way. And what drives this around Alfresco is this whole concept of open. It's more than just open source, which is our heritage as a product, but what it really stands for is open standards. So being able to take the content that you need and to integrate into the applications that you use every day, and that's driving greater flexibility and integration for organizations that are doing that. But also with open standards is that you have access to a whole lot more resource around that, and so performance gets increased because the more people are working on systems that are powered by Alfresco, which provides greater value in the overall solution. And so that's just a very brief overview of Alfresco and how we're seeing the view in terms of user interface today and why we're thinking it's very important. Really, I wanted to turn the call over to our friends at TSG so that they can talk about what they're doing with HPI and where that fits into different businesses that they're working with today. So Ben, over to you.
Great. This is George Steimer and Ben Allen. I'm George with TSG, and I'm just going to share application. Okay. Everyone on the call should see the title slide that we have up.
Looks good, thanks.
Okay, great. Just some quick introductions. I'm George Steimer with TSG. I'm the product manager of a number of our products. The one that we're going to talk about here is HPI, our high performance interface. Ben?
I'm Ben Allen, and I'm a technical architect on the HPI team. I'm going to be doing some of the demos later on.
And what we're going to talk about, just to kick it off, is we're going to talk a little bit about Share and HPI. And then the bulk of our webinar here is going to be around demos, focusing on some scenarios that we typically see from our ECM clients and how they work with search, documents, and folders, as well as workflow. And then there'll be some time for a Q&A at the end to answer any questions that you might have. So just some quick background on Technology Services Group. We're a consulting and software firm. We've been doing ECM for a long time. Since 1996, we're based in Chicago, and we've worked with a lot of different industries, from everything from life science to insurance. We've done a lot in the document management space in ECM, such as doc management, digital asset management, lots of different things. We are an Alfresco Platinum Partner. We received the Implementation of the Year Award in 2012 for our work with the New York Philharmonic. And in 2013, we were the fastest growing partner for Alfresco. So I'm pretty sure everyone on the call has at least heard of Share or has used Share. But Share is definitely what we see as sort of a do-all interface. It's very robust. It exposes all of the functionality of the repository, or at least most of it, and it's very configurable, and you can, tweak it to your needs, and deploy it widely across a lot of your ECM requirements in the enterprise. Some typical requests that we see from users that have used sort of the do-all interface are things like, hey, instead of searching all documents, can I narrow it down to only what I care about? And then similarly, can I do the same thing for my folders and document creations and what's available for documents? Can I make that very tailored so I don't have to train my users for this one specific business process that they're doing? And then another good example, especially around training, is workflow. Workflow can get very complex, especially around how the business process works. So is there ways that we can streamline that to make it specific to my business process so that I don't have to spend lots of time training and have errors and things like that? So the high performance interface, or HPI as we call it, is basically meant to extend that sort of do-all interface with a very streamlined interface for a specific business need. So we've done a number of implementations of HPI on a lot of different things. You see some examples here, but it's definitely focused on a specific business process and configured to meet just that one sort of need. So some overall interface themes that we have with HPI, and the first one is really the most important, is that HPI is striving to only show the user what's relevant. So for example, on a search, I only see relevant attributes in my advanced search. I don't have to choose between a lot of attributes that are on there. If I'm looking at for example, a policy folder, can I show related folders quickly to anticipate the business process and anticipate the needs of the user to show them related information very quickly. And we're going to go through that in some of the demos to show how that works. HPI is also very easily configurable. We do use PDFs for view, mainly because it's obviously a standard and it provides for quick viewing of content. And then another sort of thing that we do is we promote and enforce consistency. So everything from where folders and documents are created to attribute population for what attributes get filled out when, and security of who can see what document. Those types of things are hidden and enforced by the application so that it's consistent, so that I don't have to worry that I'm attributing and putting security in a document one way, and maybe Ben is in a similar role, but he's doing something in a totally different way, the way that he thinks makes sense, but maybe that's different for me and causes some confusion for users of the system. So with that, we're just going to jump into some demos, and I'm going to hand over to Ben, and he's going to kick off the demos.
So we're going to go through a couple basic scenarios in Share to show the functionality of Share. And then we're going to go through HPI and how that functionality is exposed and customized in HPI. So our first scenario is going to be a search and document display scenario, where editor, we're going to fictionally say that he's a controlled document editor, and his business process is he looks for standard operating procedures, or SOPs. So his job function is he needs to find SOPs quickly, be able to search on them, and find them in the repository. So the information that he knows that he's looking for is he needs an SOP that's named TSG in our scenario. So I'm going to hop over to my Share instance. And log in just like our normal Share. And this is Share 4.2 for folks that are interested. So once editor logged in, Share exposes this nice search interface up here that I can quickly just type in TSG for my SOP that I'm searching for. And when I run my search result, I quickly see my search came back. I see some relevant things that I'm looking for. So I see TSG 1, 2, 3, 4. I also see some additional things that came back. Since it's kind of a general do-all search, I see a contact list that came back that maybe isn't relevant to what I'm looking for. But in this case, I can go ahead and if my job function is now to look at TSG 104, I'm able to pull it up. I get the rendition that I can see the document here, scroll through to view the content. I also have my document actions on the right here that I can do my basic ECM functions like check-in, check-out, start workflows, maybe a little bit more than I need to do in my normal job process, but all my actions show up here. In addition to being able to see, if I scroll down a little bit, I'm able to see the properties view that I can look at all the metadata that's been assigned to this document. And all metadata is here, so there's some stuff that may not be applicable to me, but I have a view to see everything there. So that's kind of the quick share over. Oh yeah, I'm going to go ahead and if I were to want to edit properties as part of my job function, I can click on the Edit Properties feature, and it takes me to a different screen that I'm able to go in and change my metadata. It's kind of wide open as far as what I can edit and change in here. So depending on my business process, maybe I should or shouldn't be editing some of these things, but it's the dual interface that I'm able to do all my property editing here. And once I've made my changes, then I have to go back and I can look at my document. So that's a quick overview, I guess, of the process of searching for and finding a document through Share. I'm now going to hop over to HPI to show that exact same process using HPI to extend that and make it a little bit simpler for end users. So similarly, I'm going to log in, my same user. And immediately hop to my search tab here, where I'm given really the power of HPI is what we call tracks, to be able to configure my business process so that I'm seeing exactly what I'm supposed to be seeing. So I'm targeting my search when I choose my track here, I'm choosing what type of document that I'm looking for to help me narrow down what will show up, as well as being able to search a particular document type here, which allows me to refine my search. We'll see in this advanced search, I have my general catch-all search here where I can type in if I don't know what attribute that I'm looking for, and I'm generally just looking for TSG. But I also have an advanced search that I'm able to individually, if I know the actual name of the document, what status it is, when it was approved. It's really configured to allow the user to refine exactly what they're looking for based on the metadata for this particular document type.
And actually, one other quick note on the track. The user that Ben is logging in as has access to all the tracks, but if you can configure that maybe this user only sees the SOP track, and then that's all he sees. He doesn't have to make that choice.
So in my scenario, I'm going to go ahead and continue and do my search for TSG in my SOP track here. And we'll see in my search results, they're in a nice tabular layout where I can see all of my results quickly. I also can see all of the different metadata that's applicable. In this case, I'm showing status and version labels. Depending on your business process, there may be more and more attributes that help me quickly identify what I'm looking for. All these are sortable in the table view. As well as I don't have it configured right now, but if they were digital assets like images or videos, there's a thumbnail view that I would be able to see a quick thumbnail of the image before having to click on each one of them, so I can figure out what I'm looking for quickly. There's also a nice little quick filter here, so if I've run my search and I know within that search result, if I get a couple hundred back and I know a little bit more detail about it, I can quickly refine and say I'm looking for all draft documents, and it in line is filtering out documents that fit that. So it's really for people that consistently on a daily basis are searching for and finding documents. It's a very streamlined interface to get them to what they need. I can also hide some columns here, so if I had additional attributes that I wanted to show or hide, depending on what I'm looking for, I have the ability to do that here. So continuing on with my story, if I'm going to now look at TSG 104, I'm going to go ahead and click on it. And you'll see what we call the stage in HPI, which is kind of setting the context of the user so they see what they're looking at with the document in the big pane here, as well as seeing some configurable metadata here so that I can see quickly at a glance the important metadata that applies to the document that I'm looking at. So in this case, I've configured the name, version label, effective date, and status as things that are important that the user should see. I also have the ability to view the rest of the metadata if not everything is configured here. So if I click on the view properties, what we've seen users really enjoy is the ability to see the content of the document and the properties at the same time. So I could go ahead and make my property updates here while looking at the document if there was something that I needed to see in there. We'll also see that the fields are locked down based on security and track configurations. So I'm only allowed to edit, in this configuration, I'm only allowed to edit the name of this document. Depending on my business process, I might be allowed to edit other pieces of metadata. So this is really the configuration and really helps encourage users to make the best decisions and only editing things that they should be editing, as opposed to seeing a big properties window that they have tons of stuff that they don't know what to edit or they mislabel something. So I can also see in this view, we're definitely going to touch on this in some of the other scenarios, but just as a quick pointer here, this folder contents. So I can see any other documents that are also in this folder. As George alluded to, we like to kind of how to anticipate what the user is going to want to do with this document. So we're showing, in this instance, we're showing the other documents that exist in this folder that I'd be able to see those.
Maybe one of the other things to mention is that the document actions are shown in that icon bar at the top. Ben clicked one of them when he did the view properties. But that's another area where only the actions that are pertinent to the business process and where the document is in this process will appear. So, you know, he has like different actions in there to, you know, annotate or send email. Those are things that you can configure easily on or off to be visible or invisible for this particular business process or user.
So that's kind of a quick, I guess, document search scenario where we're looking for a document and viewing the document. We're going to go ahead and pop to our next scenario, which is a folder and document processing scenario. So we're going to use Flow, our insurance agent here, that they're a claim processor working on a claim, and they need to see all relevant claims on this document, as well as any other policies that might be related to it. So her job function might be she received a claim from an end user and needs to see the relevant policy information for this policy holder, as well as check up on any other claims that this policy might have had recently. So that's kind of a background of the quick scenario that we're going to walk through. In this instance, a claim is a folder in the system, which wouldn't be unfamiliar with just creating a folder to hold everything that is related to this claim. So I'm going to hop back now to my share instance. And in this workflow, I know as Flow, the claim processor, I know my claim number. So I'm going to go ahead and use Share's quick search again to search for claim number 456456 as my claim. And I'll see my search result. There's only one claim with that number. So on my search result, I'm able to see anything that is relevant to that claim because I searched for that claim folder. I see that there's a building claim in there, as well as there may be other subfolders and other information about this claim. You'll see on the left here, there are a lot of claims in this system. So using a folder browser, trying to kind of manually tab to the situation might not be the easiest way to get to something. But using search, obviously, is a much quicker way to be able to get to a specific claim in the system. I can also, once I'm in the claim folder, I can view an individual document in there. So if I'm looking at this document and my next step would be, okay, now I need to look at the policy for this claim to determine if what they're asking for is covered in their policy. So without knowing the policy number, I can quick scroll down and see that there's some metadata here that this is insurance policy number 121212. So if my next step is then to view that document, I can go ahead and search for 121212. We'll see that my claim comes back, or my policy comes back in the search. And now I'm able to see my policy document. So definitely doable in Share. You can see all your relevant documents and view all your searches. Might be some back and forth in order to actually view all those things at the same time or some separate tabs, but definitely able to see everything in that scenario of the insurance claim. So I'm going to walk through that same scenario in HPI, which, again, we're going to start with search in this case. And like George mentioned, my user is configured to be able to see multiple tracks. So in this case, I'm going to pick my insurance track. And right away, you'll see that I guess my search is much more tailored to being able to find a particular claim. In this case, I did know the claim number, but my case might be that I only know the policy number and I need to find all claims with that. So it's definitely configured to really help me find what I'm looking for quickly. We'll compare apples to apples here and do my same search for claim number. My search results come back. I can verify that I'm looking at the right one by verifying some other metadata, so I know that this is the right claim here. So when I view my claim, you'll see instead of seeing just the folder with all the related content inside of it, I'm showing one of the features of HPI, which is folder notes, which allows me to kind of keep a quick tab on what's going on with this folder. If there's more than one person involved with this claim, it's kind of a little whiteboard for me to be able to leave some notes for folks on what's been going on with this claim, which really kind of automates the business process of multiple people doing multiple things on it at the same time. So my scenario here is initially Jane imported this, and then we can see that somebody else called with the adjuster. So it's really a quick way to keep tabs on what's going on with the scenario. So it's kind of giving some context to what's going on with this claim. I can also see down here on the left side that in addition to just showing the folder contents of what's inside of this, I've anticipated, based on the business process, what my users are going to want to do with this document that I'm looking at. And the next step that will usually happen is when I'm looking at a claim is I'll need to look at the policy that's related. So we've saved the user a little bit of time here and gave them a quick shortcut to view the related policy.
View the claim doc.
So if I'm viewing my claim doc in my scenario, and I also need to be able to view the policy that's there. If there's a glitch with the WebEx here, we're not able to
just try refreshing.
See the PDF here.
No, that's weird.
Grayed out.
Do you want to switch to
I don't know if we want to do
type. Good. Do you want to switch to that? Or just type about plugins? I think we might be having a problem with the Adobe plugin and
the WebEx.
So we're gonna switch back to the about plugin. We're gonna switch back to the Chrome PDF viewer. There we go.
There we go. Okay. So if I'm looking at the claim and what I want to do is view the policy side by side, I can quickly view that in my side-by-side viewer, that I can look at both documents at once, and I've really given some context to what the user is wanting to do with this. So in addition to some of that stuff, some of the other actions that HPI will expose that give us some extra functionality would be if I want to email out this document to somebody else outside of the system, this action bar comes into play here that I've configured some actions that I'm able to send an email with this document as an attachment. So if I want to send this out, and I'm not going to send it and fill out this whole thing at this time, but the email would get sent out. And rather than just losing the context of that email having been sent, we have this correspondence folder, which anytime an email is sent, it's stored in the system, so I'm able to see that somebody reviewed this claim or sent out this email to be reviewed by someone. So we're really keeping everything inside of the system here to really streamline the business process all inside.
I guess if you wanted to show annotations, did you want to jump to IE or?
Yeah, and one other quick thing that I want to show is some annotations of a document.
Type in right now. Yeah, click share. Hopefully IE will have less issues with the WebEx and the annotation, or the Adobe Reader plugin here. Yeah, it looks like I can see it.
Okay. So one other common scenario that comes into play here is if there's a document in the system that I need somebody to review, instead of sending them an email or using big expensive annotations, what I can do is TSG has a product called OpenAnnotate that allows me to client side with a lightweight viewer be able to put my notes and annotations on this object. So if I am a reviewer of this document and I need to leave some annotation notes, I can go ahead and draw boxes around things, draw arrows to it, so really help my reviewers see what I'm trying to say with this document. And I'm going to add a note here to say kitchen remodel is not covered in this policy if I'm asked to look at that. So then when I save my annotations, if another business user comes in to look at this document as a part of their job and they see my annotations on here, I'm able to quickly kind of show that information to all the interested parties with the annotations on the individual document right inside the system. Like I said, was the second scenario of quick hopping through kind of folder and document processing. The last one I'm going to turn over to George to kind of go through a little bit of a workflow scenario.
Yeah. Okay, so for our last scenario here, we're going to turn back to Ed Editor, who was the editor, SOP editor, control doc editor, looking for the SOPs in the system. So what we're going to say is that Ed has a draft SOP prepared, and he wants to start a review and approval process to start the whole controlled document workflow process off to eventually get this to be an effective document. So I'm going to jump and show this in Share again. So we'll start off there. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assume that Ed has been working with this document and he knows that it's TSG 104. So I'm just looking for TSG 104 and I see my document. So I click on it and at this point I'm ready to say that I want to start a workflow. So that's one of my actions over here on the right. I'm just going to click Start Workflow. And one of the things that you would typically do in your Share implementation is you would create the activity workflow templates to drive these processes. So we're just showing the out-of-the-box templates, but most of our clients would create their own templates based on whatever their business process is. But for here, we're just going to choose this Review and Approve template. And let's say for this scenario, I'm just doing a review. I'm kicking off the review workflow. And I'm going to send it to Ben, or I'm logged in as Ben, so I'm going to send it to George, me, to review. So I'm going to say, George, please review this SOP. And this form you can configure and share, of course, but out of the box, I can set a due date. I can change the priority. To set the assignee, I simply click the Select button, and then I just type in some characters, and then this searches everyone in the repository that I can send it to. So I'm just going to say I'm going to send it to George and click OK. So here I see my attached documents. I could add or remove, but I'm going to go ahead and just start this workflow. So that goes ahead and starts the workflow. And then now I'm just going to log out and log in as George. And we can see that George in his My Tasks dashlet down here has a task here that is the one I just sent. So I'm just going to go ahead and click it. And I'm kind of taken to a similar screen that started the workflow, where I see some of the information that was entered. In order to view this document, I can click on it here, and if I'm doing my job as a reviewer, I would go through here and look at anything in here, make sure the changes are okay, and then assuming I'm good with the changes, I'll just go back to here and add some comments and say, Ben, this looks good.
Thanks.
And I'll just go ahead and approve. So, and then at this point, the task is done. Ben will get a notification that says, that it's been reviewed and approved, and he'll be able to see my comments. I believe if I log in as you, that'll be there, right, Ben?
Correct. I should have a notification that it was done. I think it's at the very bottom. Yep, this document is reviewed and approved.
Yeah. Yep. Okay. So now we're going to jump over to viewing this in the HPI scenario. So I'm going to log in as Ben again here. And I'm going to jump over to the search, and I'm just going to do this search to look for, again, TSG 104. And here I'm going to see this document. So I'm basically just at the same scenario of I want to send this on for review. So HPI actually works with another one of our products, Active Wizard, to do the whole review and approval process. And we've used it very effectively in the sort of controlled document scenario that we're showing here. So the Active Wizard is a forms tool. It's a dynamic forms tool that also includes a dynamic workflow module. So it's a little bit different in that there's no workflow templates to set up. The user doesn't have to say, you know, hey, what template should I choose for this workflow? The difference in the HPI and Active Wizard world is that it's always related to an Active Wizard form. So instead of initiating a workflow directly on this document, I have an action here to say I want to create a new wizard form and attach this document. So the form that I want to create is what I'm calling a simple change request, or a simple CR. This is a sample form that we've built based on a lot of our clients' change requests, only it's a little bit simpler. But the Active Wizard is a dynamic tool, so you could create any number of forms. We've had clients that have created over 400 different forms to use in their business processes. But for this one, I just have my simple change request form. And then instead of that page that gathers the information at the beginning of the workflow process, the Active Wizard uses this dynamic form that's very much similar to like a TurboTax type thing, where I'm answering just questions on a page, and the questions can drive me to where I want to go in the form. So I'll show that in a sec, but the idea being that this could be as simple or complex as the business process requires, and this form stays with the document throughout the whole process. So here, for example, I might want the user to include a description and rationale document for the changes that they're making. And one of the options could be, hey, you know, just attach a separate document. But if I go back here and say I would just want to enter the text into the form, I can do that, and instead of getting that file input, I get a different page here. So I could just say updated section. So I'll just do that. And now there's a number of ways that the Active Wizard can drive to approvers. This is the simplest way, where I'm simply choosing the approver. So I'm just going to select George, similarly to how we did in the share demo. The difference is that we can actually target this query. So there's a lot of times where we don't want to just allow Ben to choose anyone in the repository as a reviewer. There might be a targeted set of people that are reviewers in the system. So we have this summary page here, which shows the answers to the questions and also the attached documents. I skipped over it, but this workflow documents page, I can add additional documents or remove this document if I like. But if I just click next here, this is where it's evaluating the business rules. And you'll notice a couple of things. One is that it picked George as an approver as we'd expect, but it also picked Ellen. And it did that because of my priority of change. So as a user, I didn't need to know to pick Ellen. The system did it for me. Some of our clients definitely like that and use that. Other clients, you know, want the user picking each person depending on how the form is set up. It's flexible to do that either way. Just to show how this works, if I were to go back here and go back to this page here and choose a low priority of change, now when I click next, the workflow process is going to change. And one of the things, the reason why we do this is to make workflow less of a black box. You know, on a lot of workflow templates, especially complex workflow templates, it's too easy to you know, it's very hard for the user to know what's going on. Workflow's a black box. They pick a template, they may pick one or two people, but then after that it kind of goes into the process and they're not sure what's going on. With the Active Wizard, what we're trying to do here is show the user what the entire workflow process is going to be up front before the workflow is ever kicked off. So I'm going to go ahead and finish this, and it's going to take me to the form in the Active Wizard. So kind of related to what Ben was showing with the related claims and policies, I have the same thing for the form and the related workflow document. So I could look at this change request form as well as the document side by side. And if needed, I could even jump to that document in the ITS folder and see the document along with the related CR form, which is the one that I just created. It was auto-numbered for me to SCR 027. So I can easily jump between there. And then the workflow is all done off of the change request form. So I could choose to start the approval process, or just to show exactly what we showed in the share demo, I'm going to go ahead and just start the review process. So reviews in the Active Wizard are open, so it automatically selects my approver. But if I wanted to, I could add other users in the system for review if I would like. The approval process is locked down and would only go to the selected approvers. So I'll go ahead and just start this review route here, which is going to start the workflow. And one thing you'll notice is that the status automatically changes. It was draft, now it's in review. The actions that I can execute here change. We make sure that no other workflows are started on this document. And the actions that I have here are updated based on the status of the form itself. So I'm going to log out and just log in as my user to process that task. And in my inbox, I have this review task, so I can go ahead and just click on it. And my user's taken to the same view, except I have different actions. I, again, can delegate my task or reassign it. And I also can do other things on it as well based on my status in the system. But again, like we mentioned before, as a good reviewer, I want to actually go in and review this document. So again, I could click it in the dual pane mode, review the changes that Ben made along with the change request form that he submitted in the original step there.
And as a reviewer, hopefully use OpenAnnotate to persuade any information about the review process. Yeah,
and typically it looks, yeah, here. So typically to make those annotations, or if I didn't want to make a change, I would use OpenAnnotate to maybe draw an arrow or add a note to say, you know, hey, maybe you forgot to add table or something like that. I'll just skip that. I'm just going to skip that because we were having that issue with the Adobe Reader, but it would show that annotation in here. So at this point, if I'm satisfied my review's finished, I can head to the form, back to the form here, and then complete my review task. And then this is just a simple submit. So once this completes, the status of the form and the document go back to draft. So the system automatically handles that, that process there. And if I then go in and log out and log back in as Ben, he would have gotten an email that says that this form was finished review, and there's a link in that email that would take him back here, and he can, if I had added any annotations, he would be able to see them and view it in here. Really quickly, I know we didn't show this in the share demo, but I wanted to show very quickly the approval process, just because the Active Wizard and HPI definitely come with a lot of features that are very common to the controlled document scenario. Specifically, if I go ahead and click this approval workflow, again, it's just going to send it to George because that was the configured approver. So here, once this approval route is started, you'll see the status is pending approval, and I cannot edit the form anymore, which is very typical, especially in the pharma industry. If something is in workflow, nothing can be changed. And similarly, if I look at this TSG 104 document, I can see it's pending approval, and I do not have my edit action up here. It's completely locked down. So I'm going to go ahead and just process this task quickly so we can see what happens when it goes to approved. So I have my approval task. Again, I could add annotations and reject, but I'm going to go ahead and just approve. We require a 21 CFR Part 11 compliant e-signature, so that's why we're asking for the user's username and password here. So I'm just going to enter my credentials and submit. And I set this up as a very simple workflow, so it's quick. There was only one approver, but once this finishes, we're going to see a number of very typical compliance-related things happen. The first is that the status is approved, and we also major versioned the form to a 1.0. Typically, the major versions are the approved content in the system. We'll also see a signature page was added to the form, and we can also see that the document had a very similar piece happen to it. So it has gone to the approved status, and you can see the version label has been up to 6.0. It was at like a 5.2, I believe. And we can also see a signature page was added to this document as well at the very bottom. And I believe that's all we had to show for this demo, so I'm going to flip back to the presentation here. So really quickly, I just wanted to show this in case anyone is interested. We do have a fairly modern architecture with HPI, which includes the HPI modules as well as the Active Wizard modules. We leverage jQuery, backbone JavaScript on the front end, as well as Twitter Bootstrap. And then we connect via REST to our OpenContent API, which has activity embedded in it. OpenContent's a Spring 3 sort of Java Web Services API. And then we connect to Alfresco via subsystem. Some of you may be wondering why we don't just call Alfresco directly from HPI, and the reason is being that HPI can talk to multiple types of repositories. So through OpenContent, we could connect to something other than Alfresco to leverage those HPI features.
And keeping with the Alfresco slides of this is open source code.
Yep. Well, that's all we had for the demos and slides. Were there any questions on the line?
Yes. Our first question is, how configurable is the table view? I'm curious in particular about custom properties and associations.
Yes. Actually, I can show that easier than talking to it. So I'll just jump over in here. We'll go back over to Ben's demo here. So the HPI interface is extremely configurable, both in the attributes that are available in search as well as the attributes that appear on the table view here. So certain users have this admin function available, so I'm going to go ahead and just click on that. And here I'll just go into the insurance config, and we can look at the search config here for a number of different things. Ben mentioned that we did have different modules like a grid view and list view if you have digital assets that you can configure. Specifically, I think the question was around the table view. We can configure for any type that comes up, like I believe it was a claims folder that appears, what fields to show as well as what fields to hide. So if you decided that you didn't want to show report date at all, you could just slide it over there, or if you wanted to hide it, you could slide it down here. Similarly with the advanced search, you can say, hey, for a claims folder, I want to have a single, we have multiple groups essentially. I don't know, Ben, if you configured, it looks like you only configured one, but if I configured, say, let's say this examiner name as a secondary, and then save that. Now, examiner name doesn't appear here, but it does appear in this more field section. And there's a separate area where you're configuring what we call an object type config. So that's where you're configuring what attributes to expose. So on a claim, I want to expose these attributes, but I want to hide lock owner object type and version label. So if you were to add an attribute, you could add it to this config and then jump into the table view config or the advanced search config to just drag those attributes where you'd like them to appear, you know, in the respective section.
Yep, and all configurable within the confines of what the Alfresco data model is set up.
Pay attention to those two things.
So if your data model in Alfresco, if you modeled out all your object types, HPI you'd be able to drag and drop and use your custom metadata right from the Alfresco dictionary.
Okay,
Hopefully
great.
that answered. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a follow-up question. She says, that's awesome. Does it work as easily with associations as properties?
So associations, how HPI exposes those associations is what we touched on in a lot of places, which was showing related documents or related claims. So George, if you want to hop in, I guess, to the admin for.
Yeah, I'll just show it really quickly here. So we have that example of showing related information. Ben here is looking at a claim, but we can see there's also a related claim and a related policy. That is configurable in the admin here. If I look at what we call our stage config, the related object section is where I'm configuring those sections. So we have a number of sections here that are pre-configured. There's a few ways that we can configure this. Some clients, the association makes complete sense to say, you know, show me any folders that are associated with this folder with this association name, and we can definitely do that. With claims and policies, though, sometimes those associations are extremely hard to manage, so we can also show associations based on a query, which is what these are. So these related claims is a query to say, if basically show me any claim folder, what am I at? I'm in the related, I forget what you're in, a policy, I think. Related policy. So I could say, show me the policies that are related based on the policy number being the same as the
object that I'm looking at.
Yeah, the folder that I'm looking at.
But to answer the question, I guess, of showing associations, if we're going to create a new one, instead of using a query-based relationship, we would pick from that second drop-down of relation-based, or Alfresco calls them associations, of any associations based on how it's configured in your data model. So if you have integrity that you're configuring all those associations, you could definitely show based on relation name.
So if I had that here and I had like a new relation, and I could say, show me any of the children for the current folder with this relation name, and then it would show up in that related document section. I'll just go ahead and so I don't mess with this.
Okay,
hopefully that answered the question. Is there any follow-ups or any other questions?
We do have another question here. It is, how much does HPI cost, and when will it be available for download?
Well, Ben kind of touched on this. HPI is open source, so it is freely available. Currently, the HPI 2.1 release is not out on our downloads page. It will be at some point. The timeline hasn't been determined yet, but HPI is free for any TSG client, and we have a number of clients that are on this release. But it will be on our downloads page at some point. The timeline just hasn't been determined yet.
Okay, great. I think that is all we have for questions.
Okay. Well, thanks everyone for calling in. Thanks for your time. Appreciate it. I guess we did have quickly you can check out our blog. We have a number of posts out there. The first link here of the blog series actually talks through all of the scenarios that we went through today in more detail. So if you take a look through that, give it a read, there's definitely a lot of good information in there. We have a few other blog posts that we put up here around migrations, as well as some of our thoughts about using Alfresco in the cloud. And if you have any other questions, feel free to contact myself or Ben. Ray Wajenko isn't on the call, but he is our Alfresco practice lead. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.
Great, thank you.
All right, thanks everyone.
Mm-hmm.